Welcome to Teaching Truth. In our reflections this week, we are allowing John to take us in the spirit, as it were, to view the magnificence and the unparalleled beauty of the throne room in heaven. We've already thought about the place of the throne being in the throne room of the universe. We've also thought about the person, the one who was sitting upon that throne. And we learned yesterday of how John described the one who was sitting upon that throne, Jesus Christ, King of Kings, Majesty. And our focus today is upon the presentation of the throne. You see, John's gaze moves from being captivated by the brilliance and the radiance of God's glory, and he begins to observe other things which are around the throne. What are the other things which John observes around the throne? Well, first of all, he observes and describes a rainbow which encircles the throne. What does a rainbow remind us of? A rainbow reminds us of God's faithfulness. Remember after the flood in the days of Noah, how that rainbow came to symbolize God's covenant faithfulness, his mercy and his grace. And so that rainbow that John saw in heaven encircling the throne is reminding us of God's eternal love. He is a loving ruler. His wrath never operates at the expense of his faithfulness. John saw a rainbow. But as John gazes around, he also sees that there are 24 other thrones around the throne of God. And seated on these 24 other mini thrones, as it were, are 24 elders. Now, you might well ask the question, as I ask it too, well, who are these 24 elders? Who are the 24 elders? Now, some would suggest that they are angels, but I don't believe that they're angels, because the Greek word elders, when translated, is never used in Scripture to refer to angels, but in Hebrew and Greek always refers to men. It's often used to speak of older men who are in a position of being fitted to rule. And it would be an inappropriate term when you think about it to describe angels, because angels do not age in a chronological sense. And though angels often appear in white, we do not read anywhere in Scripture of them wearing crowns and sitting on thrones, which would suggest rule and authority. And therefore, I believe that these elders are humans and represent the church and those who have been taken into heaven. You see, Jesus Christ promised white garments to the overcomers. He counseled the church that we thought about last week in our reflections, the church at Laodicea, to buy white garments from him. White garments symbolizing Christ's righteousness given to believers at that moment that they put their trust in him. And the golden crowns that are spoken of here also in Revelation 4, these are not the crowns of a ruler. That's a different word in Greek, but these are the crowns rather of a victor, worn by those who successfully competed and won, as it were, the victory. For example, there were 24 officers of the temple sanctuary that represented the 24 tribes, as it were, the 24 strands of Levitical priests. There were also 24 divisions of singers in the temple. So all that to say this, that this group of 24 elders which John saw as he gazed around, as he looked around, I believe represents therefore a larger group, the church raptured. The church raptured, which in Revelation 5 sing that song of redemptions. They have their crowns and live in the place prepared for them. They've gone to be with Jesus as promised. John also gazes round and he hears with his ears, as well as sees with his eyes. He hears with his ears peals and sounds of thunder and flashes of lightning. In the book of Exodus, when God came down onto Mount Sinai, and also when God appeared to the prophet Ezekiel, there were peals of thunder and lightning which were associated with God's presence. And here they're associated with God's presence and the judgment which is about to come on the earth during the tribulation. And so what John is seeing is a preview, as it were, of God's wrath to come against the sinfulness and rebellion of mankind on the earth. What else does John see as he gazes around? Well, we say that his attention drawn back to the throne. John tells us that there were 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne of God. And the word translated lamp, this is the Greek word that's used for outdoor torches, giving off the fiery blazing light. And John identifies these torches as the 7 spirits of God. The 7 spirits of God. Torches in Old Testament times were sometimes associated and often associated with war, like when Gideon surrounded the Midianites and blew their trumpets and broke the pots off their blazing torches. And so this vision of the torches, of the lamps as it were, depicts God as ready to make war with sinful, rebellious humanity. Sinful, rebellious humanity. God burning, as it were, his wrath, illuminating that which is sinful. And finally, John said that he saw before the throne something like a sea of glass, like crystal. John is describing again what things look like. Now, it's probably not an actual sea in terms of water, but probably something akin to a vast pavement of glass or crystal shining brilliantly. In Exodus and in Ezekiel, when Moses, Aaron, and the elders of Israel, and when the prophet Ezekiel saw God, they described him as seated with a clear, shining pavement under him and before him. God's glory will be reflected throughout heaven in a manner way beyond our ability to describe or even imagine. So as John looked round, he saw all these things. He saw the rainbow, he saw the 24 thrones, the 24 elders. He heard the peals of thunder, he saw the lightning, he saw the torches, and he saw and described this crystal sea shining brilliantly. What a description of heaven. What a presentation of heaven, which John articulates for us. Join me tomorrow in Teaching Truth as we continue to explore the throne room of the universe and look at the protectors around the throne.